Hi everybody, Jim Ostrowski with a special edition of the Liberty Moving podcast. I'll get started in a second. I got to get my heated gloves on, and I'm afraid there's no easy way to do it. You just gotta struggle. So GOP Score Card, the third annual. Hold on a second. Yeah, I'm good. Okay. I'm sort of good. I think I'm good anyway. So I was just thinking this morning, if I say that, hold on a second. If I say that the GOP is a fraud, dropped it. That's not going to be too good. Okay, got it. Okay, I think we're good. If I say that the Republican Party is a fraud scheme, and your response is, yeah, but Karl Rove is living rent-free inside your head. So talk a little bit about like the history of the Republican Party. I think it was founded in 1856. And if you look at the platform, it's basically a big government platform. It's the old American system of Henry Clay, and then I think Clay was a slave owner, so they added in moderate opposition to slavery. Lincoln did offer to guarantee slavery permanently in the South. It was a moderate opposition to slavery. They didn't want slavery extended into the territories. But other than that, it was a big government party. It was, the American system was high tariffs, big government. Tariffs are taxes. MAGA. Tariffs are taxes. Low. Tariffs are taxes. Did you hear that? They wanted they wanted inflation. They wanted like a national bank. And they wanted pork barrel projects. They wanted internal improvements. The Republican Party is a big government party. And during the Civil War, when the Democrats, who were kind of small government except on slavery, because slavery is, of course, a government program, the Democrats, of course, left Congress during the war. And the Republicans passed all sorts of big government stuff. I can't rattle it off, but Tom DiLorenzo has written about it. I've written about it myself in Progressivism, a primer, and other books. One of the things that Lincoln got started was the Agriculture Bureau, which turned into the Agriculture Department, which plagues us to this day, and we're going to be obviously proposing to get rid of that in our rural program. But so I don't want to digress too much. We'll get into the scorecard. So I won't go through the whole history of the party. There was the only time really when the Republican Party cut government was during the Harding and Coolidge administration. And not to take anything away from Harding Coolidge, but that was after a war. And government always shrinks after a war. So it kind of doesn't count. It's kind of an asterisk there. Hold on, I got a little snow to go through before I continue on the road. So, but let's say that around 1964, there was some impetus to cut government. Government obviously got out of control in the whole history of the progressive era. People were a little sick of it. So the Republican Party comes along with Barry Goldwater, and they're going to start to claim that they're for small government. So since 1964, the Republican Party has told people that if you vote for us, we will cut the size of government, basically. I'm simplifying, but that's basically true. So I figured when the GOP retook the House a few years ago, I said, well, shouldn't there be like some metrics, an algorithm to rank, to determine with at least partially in control of the government and being able to veto all spending, how the government did in that year. And this is the third annual today, but this is the one with the most resonance because eventually Republicans took over the Senate, the House, and the presidency. So this is probably the first clean year where the Republicans were basically in control of everything. There's some quote mandatory spending, but in all honesty, because of things like the debt limit, even that's on the table. So the bottom line is I came up with an algorithm to determine, did the government grow in the previous year? And the algorithm has 5 factors, which I think are very sensible. And several of the factors capture a very difficult factor to measure, which is called regulation. So the 5 factors are spending for the year. I think that's obvious. Debt held by the public, since our government is heavily financed by debt. I think that's a factor. Debt determines many things in society, including sort of a predictor of future tax increases. So I think that's a fair measurement. The number of agencies, because, regulation is done by agencies. The number of federal employees is critical. And then to kind of capture the aspect of war, which has been a major cost factor since progressives took over in 1913. They kind of jumped into World War I for no particular reason. And ever since, Bob Dole was famous for using the phrase Democrat wars. It was the only good thing the guy ever did, and he got criticized for it. But yeah, most wars have been Democrat wars. World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, Korea. Bush, of course, started, in recent years, it's been more bipartisan because the Republicans had abandoned their, so-called isolationist, position. So to measure, this is kind of a surrogate for foreign intervention and war, number of troops overseas. So I score these out as each adding to 20 points. I like simple algorithms. So each factor is worth 20 points. So nearing the end of the year, and I just crunched the final numbers, I take these numbers at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, and it really it's either 20 points or below 20 points or above 20 points. It's pretty simple math. So let's go through it. We've got spending. Spending went up from 6.9 trillion to 7.2 trillion under Trump and the Republican Party. So that turns out to be a score of 20.73, an increase, obviously. So, and then debt held by the public. This isn't the total debt because the total debt includes the debt the government owes the other government agencies, which to me is kind of a phony metric. So the debt held by the public, in other words, the government owes this money to entities beyond the government. I think it's a fair number. So guess what, folks? Debt went from 28.8 trillion to 30.9 trillion. We're almost at 31 trillion. So that's a big increase. So the score there is 21.49. And flipping the page, number of agencies. Now, remember, Doge was going to get rid of agencies? Well, oddly enough, there's more agencies in the federal government today than there were at the beginning of the year. I don't know how that happens. It went from 441 to 444, increase of 3, and that yields a score of 20.13. Now, the one area that Trump did actually accomplished something decent was he did reduce the number of government employees, and my numbers are by about 80,000. And by the way, they make this stuff really hard to get the statistics on. It's supposedly a democracy. This stuff should be like on a website, number of employees. the change over a year, whatever. You have to ferret all this stuff out. So it's like this notion that, oh yeah, you to be a good citizen, you have to be knowledgeable. Right. Well, you have to be kind of a PhD. I'm not a PhD, but I have a lot of experience in researching, going back 45 years, 300 publications. So I know how to get these numbers, but the numbers are kind of, difficult. So on that one, that's the only one of the 5 factors. I'll give you a preview of that actually went down. And that's, so we went from 20 points to 19.46. It's a slight move towards smaller government. And apparently a lot of that was cuts in the Department of Education. There's a lot of, there's sort of a myth that Trump's going to get rid of the Department of Education. That was all bullshit. He hasn't gotten rid of any departments. But he did significantly reduce employees in the Department of Education. I'll give him credit where credit is due. So that leads to the final statistic, and this is the statistics that's most difficult. By the way, I'm at a secret, undisclosed location to protect my security. I've got these Egyptian planes following me all over the place. Just kidding. No, I'm at Chestnut Ridge Park, which I think is in Orchard Park. I should know that. If it's not, I'm embarrassed. So, troops overseas. Very difficult to get exact and current numbers, but the best of my estimate is, in all my sources, I'll post this. I'll post this chart later on when I get back to the ranch, and all the sources are in there. So, troops overseas went from 166,000 to 177,000. I actually think it's more because Trump is such a bellicose president. We've got troops all over the place, and some of the troop movements are not captured in the statistics. So I think this one is actually underestimated. But on that one, government got bigger. We go from 20 points at the beginning of the year to 21.24. Again, this is the only algorithm that anybody's ever invented since 1964 to measure the Republican Party. It's so stupid. It's like democracy. Yeah. I mean, well, if there's no way to measure the promises of each part of the parties against what actually happened, what are you voting for? My critique of voting is well known. So at the end, if you total up all the scores and minus out the one that went down, at the beginning of the year, the size of government was 100 points. And drum roll, please. Now, after the Republicans have been in control of everything, they have no excuses. They control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House, and they control the Supreme Court 6-3. The government is now at 103.05. So government grew by 3% during the year when we were all told that it was supposed to shrink. Elon Musk was going to cut trillions and all this bullshit, cut employees and cut departments. So basically, the big picture in Trump and of the Trump administration is that the progressive state of America, which I wrote a book about 11 years ago, it's now 12 years ago, which starts in 1913, is not under any threat whatsoever. The progressive state of America continues. Virtually no departments have been eliminated. No major programs have been eliminated. A few people were fired from the Department of Education, which is fine. But other programs increased and more people were hired in other agencies. Spending has gone up, debt's up, inflation's up. So basically, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, the purpose of the scorecard, my own personal purpose, was to prove that the GOP is a fraud scheme. And I've proven that for the third year in a row, because in the first year where they had control of the House, the score was 101.86. The second year where they had more control, it went up to 105.49. So each year since the Republicans took the House and then took the Senate and the presidency, in the latter years, government has increased. And why is this a problem? Well, because the cost of government is about 80 cents on the dollar, and I'm writing a book about that. I have difficulty explaining to people because they think it's taxes only. It's not taxes only. Regulations is a huge factor. So basically, the problem in the country right now is that it's the quote affordability crisis that everybody talks about, but nobody, I'm going to turn around here and head back to the car. Nobody talks about, I'm almost done. Everybody talks about affordability, but nobody talks about the cause. The cause is that the cost of government has drastically increased. I've been crunching numbers since 1971 because that's when the Libertarian Party was founded, and I'm running for chair of the Libertarian Party. And I point out to people that since 1971, it's drastically increased. It's really been increasing, throughout the progressive era with some ups and downs during wartime and crises. So the cost of government is now so high that young people cannot afford to get married, have kids, and buy a house. Now, that's it. That's the only problem. No big deal, except that without young people, there is no future. We will cease to exist. I mean, the land will be here. There'll be some people here. They just won't be us. So that's it. I mean, again, GOP is a fraud scheme. What to do about it? Well, I'm rolling out a very detailed plan that involves both direct action, which works, and political action, which usually doesn't work, but I'm throwing some creative ideas out there as part of my platform to run for LP chair. That'll be decided in May of this year now in Grand Rapids. So that's pretty much it. This is the third annual GOP Score Card. It's like same old, same old. Government got bigger under the Republican Party because the Republican Party is a fraud scheme. And on that note, I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful new year.